So hello students, we were discussing the third chapter, that is plant kingdom. In that we have finished the starting two divisions, that is the first one division algae and the second division, that was bryophyte. Okay, so after completion of that, the third division in case of kingdom plantae is called as pteridophytes. Okay, so these pteridophytes, these are also a group of special type of plants which are possessing certain peculiar characters. And the major plants which we are going to observe in the pteridophytes, we commonly call them as horsetails and ferns. Okay, horsetails and ferns are some common groups we are going to observe in pteridophyte division. The habitat of the pteridophytes, they commonly found in cool, damp as well as in case of some shady places. Though some may flourish well in sandy soil conditions. So some pteridophytes, they can also be found in the sandy as well as soil condition. But the important peculiarity of the pteridophytes is they are evolutionarily, they are the first terrestrial plants to possess vascular tissues. So in the previous one, in the algae as well as in case of the bryophytes, there were no presence of the vascular bundles, isn't it? The xylem and phloem were not developed, isn't it? So they don't possess any vascular system, that means transport system, because their body is thalloid like, isn't it? In case of pteridophytes, these are somewhat erected okay, and they are the first terrestrial plants to possess xylem as well as the phloem. So in pteridophytes, the main plant body is a sporophyte, but while in case of algae as well as in case of the bryophyte, the main plant body was gametophyte, isn't it? That is the differences. ಆ differences ಅನ್ನು ನಾವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸರಿಯಾಗಿ ನೋಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. Main plant body in pteridophyte is sporophyte, okay, which is differentiated into true root, stem and leaves. See, again the important feature it is pteridophytes are possessing the true roots, true stem as well as true leaves, but in algae as well as in case of bryophyta, there were no true leaf as well as the leaves, isn't it? So these are the first terrestrial plants to possess vascular tissue, as well as these are the first plants to possess the true root, stem as well as the leaves. These organs possess well differentiated vascular tissues. These organs andre yavdu illi root, stem and leaf. Okay, root, stem and leaf are possessing the vascular tissues. The leaves in pteridophytes are two types. As we already know that the pteridophytes are possessing true root and leaf, the leaves are commonly two types. The first one type of leaves are called as microphylla. Example in case of Selaginella. Okay, Selaginella is a type of pteridophyte which is possessing the microphyll. So microphyll andre ಏನು, small needle like leaves. Micro andre small anta. Okay, PHYLL, fill means leaf. Okay, leaf ge fill anta biology ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದು. Microphyll, small leaf structure, and large leaves are called as macrophylls. Okay, macro means larger, fill means leaves. Some pteridophytes are possessing larger leaves. Example, ferns. Next one, the sporophytes bear sporangia that are subtended by leaf-like appendages called sporophylls. So as we know that the main plant body of the pteridophyte is a sporophyte. So that what is the function of the sporophyte? To bear the spores alva. Sporophyte ಕೆಲಸ ಏನು, spores ಅನ್ನು produce ಮಾಡೋದು. So the spores are produced by the sporophyte, but those spores are produced in a special structure called as sporangia. Okay, those sporangia are the special structure which are producing the spores, which are subtended by, subtended means covered anta. Okay, which are subtended ಅಂದ್ರೆ covered by leaf like appendages called sporophylls. So diagram we can observe here. So these reddish colored small dots are called as each a sporangium. Okay, in the short sori anta karitare, SORI anta. Okay, so these are called as sori. Within that sori we can observe the production of the spores. In some cases, sporophylls may form distinct compact structures called as trobili or cones. So in this picture we are observing the sori are present in the below portion of the leaf, so that within that sori the spores are producing. So this is simple one. But in case of certain plants like Selaginella and Equisetum, what happens? The sporophylls may form distinct compact structures called strobili or cones. Whatever you are observing, the leaves here, these are the individual leaves, isn't it? These are, we can call them as the sporophyll. But in some Selaginella as well as in case of Equisetum, these sporophylls, they will aggregate, they will be aggregated into a compact structure called as strobili, or else it is also called as cone. So in case of Selaginella, no, in case of Equisetum, we can observe the strobilus or cone is present at the tip portion of the plant. Okay, so you can observe the entire sporophyte. This is the sporophyte of the Equisetum. So where the branches are present which are possessing the leaves, the leaves are very short. Okay, they are microphylls here, but the sporophylls are compactly arranged and forms a bulb-like structure. It is called as strobilus or cone. Sporangia produce spores by meiosis in spore mother cells. The spores germinate to give rise to inconspicuous, small, multicellular, free-living, mostly photosynthetic thalloid gametophytes called as prothallus. So as we know, the sori, they are producing the spores by the process of meiosis, so that those spores will come out of the parental body, germinate and produce what they are going to produce. They will germinate to, they will giving the inconspicuous, that means undifferentiated. ಆ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ ಜರ್ಮಿನೇಷನ್ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಆ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ನ ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಶಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. It is small, multicellular, free living, mostly photosynthetic thalloid gametophyte. Okay, the gametophyte in case of the pteridophyte we call it as prothallus. ಆ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ ಜರ್ಮಿನೇಷನ್ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಏನೊಂದು ಅನ್ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಶಿಯೇಟೆಡ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಪ್ರೋಥ್ಯಾಲಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ, which is photosynthetic and free living. This is important. Gametophyte here in case of the pteridophyte is photosynthetic. So the structure of gametophyte here, this is the structure of the prothallus. Okay, you can observe small root-like structures, rhizoids. So in order to give the stability to the prothallus, antheridia and archegonia are also present, isn't it? What is the function of the gametophyte? Gametophyte formation ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದರ ಫಂಕ್ಷನ್ ಏನು? To produce the male and female gametes, isn't it? To produce male and female gametes, there must be sex organs. Okay, sex organs are antheridia as well as archegonia. So it is the picture of the fern. So it is the Selaginella. So what will happen after spore germinates and it produces the prothallus? That prothallus requires cool, damp, shady places to grow. The requirement of the prothallus is it must require a cool place. That means the temperature must be cool. Damp soil must be available, as well as shady place it loves to grow. Shady place, ಜಾಸ್ತಿ sunlight available ಇರಬಾರ್ದು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ. Okay, because of this restricted requirement and the need for water for fertilization, the spread of pteridophytes is limited and restricted to narrow geographical regions. So ಏನು ನಾವು prothallus ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೇವೆ, it requires always cool place, okay, damp soil as well as a shaded place. So due to this restricted requirement, because such type of environment is not found everywhere, isn't it? ಈ ತರ ಎನ್ವಿರಾನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ರಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಇರುವಂತ ರಿಕ್ವೈರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಜಾಗದಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಸಿಕ್ಕೋದಿಲ್ಲ. As well as the prothallus requires water for fertilization. So don't confuse that with the bryophytes. Okay, it simply requires the water for fertilization, but it is not a amphibian, remember. That's why its spread, the pteridophytes spread is very narrow to the geographical regions. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಜಗತ್ತಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ಜಾಗದಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ನೋಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಿಕ್ಕೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಯಾವ ಜಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಇದೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತ್ರ ರೀಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ ಅಂತ ಅರ್ಥ. The gametophytes bear male and female sex organs, as we know, and they are called as antheridia and archegonia. The male sex organ is called as antheridia, female sex organ is called as archegonia, like that in bryophyte. Water is needed for transfer of anthrozoids to the mouth of the archegonium, isn't it? The anthrozoids that are produced in the antheridium, they will directly move into the mouth of the archegonium with the help of the water. Okay, Anthrazoid fuses with the egg in the archegonium to form the zygote. Like that of bryophyte, same ಏನಾಗ್ತದೆ, ಆಂಥ್ರೋಜೋಯಿಡ್ ಆರ್ಕಿಗೋನಿಯಂ ರೀಚ್ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಎಗ್ ಜೊತೆ ಫ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ಸೊ ಆಸ್ ದ ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ ವಾಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್, ಎ ಡಿಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಡ್ zygote is going to form. That diploid zygote produces a multicellular well differentiated sporophyte, isn't it? Zygote develop ಇದ್ದದ್ದು ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋ ಆಗ್ತದೆ, ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋ ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಇದ್ದದ್ದು ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಪೋರೋಫೈಟ್ ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಆಗಲೇಬೇಕು, isn't it? The life cycle continuous ಆಗ್ತದೆ ಮತ್ತೆ. So that's the differentiated sporophyte is the dominant phase in case of the pteridophyte. Okay, most of the pteridophytes produce similar kinds of the spore, that is homosporous plants. Andre ಏನು, majority of the pteridophytes they are possessing only one type of spores. That means you cannot distinguish the two spores. That means the one which is going to produce the male prothallus and the one which is going to produce the female prothallus. ಅದನ್ನು ಡಿಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ವಿಷ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ, ಹೋಮೋಸ್ಪೋರಸ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟೂಡ್? ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಇನ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಲೈಕೋಪೋಡಿಯಂ ಆಸ್ ವೆಲ್ ಆಸ್ ಇನ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಆಫ್ Xylotum. So Xylotum and Lycopodium both are producing homosporous. Okay, similar kind ಇರ್ತದೆ, ಎರಡು ಕೂಡ ಡಿಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ವಿಷ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. But some plants, some pteridophytes are going to produce two kinds of spores. ಕೆಲವೊಂದಿಷ್ಟು ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಎರಡು ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಕೈಂಡ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ. ಅಂತ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಏನಂತ ಕರಿತೇವೆ ನಾವು, ಹೆಟಿರೋಸ್ಪೋರಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೆಯೋದು. ಓಕೆ, ಹೆಟಿರೋ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಡಿಫರೆಂಟ್, ಸ್ಪೋರಸ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ ಬಿಯರಿಂಗ್. ಸೊ ಯಾವ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಫ್ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ ಹಾಗಾದ್ರೆ, one kind is large spores, another kind is small size. ಸಿಂಪಲ್, ಮಾರ್ಫಾಲಜಿಕಲಿ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನು ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಶಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಲ್ವಾ. ದೊಡ್ಡ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ರೋಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ, ಸಣ್ಣ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ಗೆ ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಫಾರ್ ಹೆಟ್ರೋಸ್ಪೋರಸ್, ಸೆಲಾಜಿನೆಲ್ಲಾ ಆಸ್ ವೆಲ್ ಆಸ್ ಸಾಲ್ವಿನಿಯಾ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಹೋಮೋಸ್ಪೋರಸ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಲೈಕೋಪೋಡಿಯಂ and Xylotum. For heterosporous plants example Selaginella and Salvinia. So this is the picture of Salvinia as that of the textbook. The megaspores germinate and give rise to female gametophyte. See here, megaspore refers to macrospore. ನೆನಪಿಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಮೆಗಾ ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ರೋ ಎರಡು ಕೂಡ ಸಿಮಿಲರ್ ಮೀನಿಂಗ್ ಕೊಡ್ತದೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಮೆಗಾಸ್ಪೋರ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ರೋಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ. The megaspores germinate and give rise to female gametophyte and microspore germinate and give rise to male gametophyte, as we know in case of heterosporous plants, isn't it? But in case of homosporous plants, what will happen? Only one type of spores are present, and we don't know which is going to produce male prothallus or which is going to produce the female prothallus. The female gametophytes are retained on the parent sporophytes for variable periods. In case of bryophyte, what happens? The sporophyte was not independent, it was dependent on the gametophyte for its nourishment. But in case of the pteridophytes, what will happen? The male gametophyte, it is independent, but the female gametophyte, it is somewhat depending on the sporophyte for variable period. So ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಉಲ್ಟಾ ಆಯ್ತು ನೋಡಿ ಕೇಸ್ ಅದು. In case of bryophyte ಏನಾಗಿತ್ತು, sporophyte was depending on the gametophyte for food and nourishment, but here it is reversible. The gametophyte itself is depending on the sporophyte for nourishment. ಯಾಕೆ? The dominant phase of the life cycle in case of pteridophyte is sporophyte. ಯಾವುದು ಡಾಮಿನೆಂಟ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ ಅದೇ ಫೋಟೋಸಿಂಥಸಿಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಅಂತ ಅರ್ಥ. So within the female gametophyte, zygotes develop into young embryos. This event is a precursor to the seed habit. So what will happen when the female gametophyte is retained within the sporophyte body for variable period? What will happen? The zygote will be formed. Female gametophyte ಇದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ female gametophyte ಅಲ್ಲಿ egg cell production ಆಗ್ತದೆ. So anthrazoid ಬಂದು ಫ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆದಾಗ zygote formation ಆಗ್ತದೆ, ಹೌದಾ? That zygote will develop into young embryo formation ಆಗೋದು. So that embryo formation is an event, is a precursor to the seed habit. ಸೀಡ್ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಟೆಂಡೆನ್ಸಿ ಟು ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ದ ಸೀಡ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಅರ್ಥ. ಇನ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಜಿಮ್ನೋಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಎಂಜಿಯೋಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ಸ್, ದೋಸ್ ಟು ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ವಿ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ದಮ್ ಆಸ್ ಎ ಹೈಲಿ ಎವಾಲ್ವ್ಡ್ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್, ಇಸಂಟ್ ಇಟ್? ಎಸ್ಪೆಷಲಿ ಎಂಜಿಯೋಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ಸ್. ಏನು ಸ್ಪೆಷಾಲಿಟಿ ಹಾಗಾದರೆ ಎಂಜಿಯೋಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ ಮತ್ತು ಎಂಜಿಯೋಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ? ಬೋತ್ ಆರ್ ಪೊಸೆಸಿಂಗ್ ದ ಸೀಡ್, ಇಸಂಟ್ ಇಟ್? ಸೀಡ್ ಈಸ್ ದಿ ಪ್ರಿಮಿಟಿವ್ ಒನ್ ಟು ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂ ದ ಲೈಫ್ ಸೈಕಲ್ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಸೀಡ್ ಅನ್ನುವಂಥದ್ದು ಏನದು, ಅದೊಂದು ಲೈಫ್ ಸೈಕಲ್ ಇನಿಷಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಆಗುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಬಟ್ ಟೆರಿಡೋಫೈಟಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಸೀಡ್ಸ್ ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ ದಟ್ ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋ ಈಸ್ ಟೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಟು ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಎ ಸೀಡ್. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸೀಡ್ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಏನರ್ಥ? ಎವಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಆದಾಗೆ ಲೈಫ್ ಸೈಕಲ್ ಕಾಂಪ್ಲೆಕ್ಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಆಲ್ಗೆ ಟು ಬ್ರಯೋಫೈಟಾ ನೋಡಿ, ಆಲ್ಗೆದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಾಡಿ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ತುಂಬ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಆಗಿತ್ತು, ಯೂನಿಸೆಲ್ಯುಲರ್ ಆಗಿತ್ತು. ಅದೇ ಥರ ಬ್ರಯೋಫೈಟಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಮ್ ವಾಟ್ ಎಲಾಬೊರೇಟ್ ಆಯಿತು. ಲೈಕ್ ದಟ್ ಇನ್ ಟೆರಡೋಫೈಟ್ ಅಗೇನ್ ವೆಸ್ಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಬಂಡಲ್ಸ್ ಬಂತು, ಟ್ರೂ ರೂಟ್, ಸ್ಟೆಮ್ ಲೀಫ್ ಬಂತು, ಇಸೆಂಟ್ ಇಟ್? ಬಟ್ ಸೀಡ್ ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೀಡ್ ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗೋದು? ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಜಿಮ್ನೋಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ಸೊ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ this seed habit is considered as an important step in evolution. ಸೊ ಎವಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಆಗಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸೀಡ್ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟ್ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಒಂದು ತುಂಬ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಿರೋದು. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಆಲ್ಗೆ ಮತ್ತು ಬ್ರಯೋಫೈಟಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಸೀಡ್ ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಆಗಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ ಟೆರಡೋಫೈಟಾದಲ್ಲೂ ಆಗಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಶೋಸ್ ದ ಟೆಂಡೆನ್ಸಿ ಬೈ ರಿಟೈನಿಂಗ್ ದ ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋ ವಿದಿನ್ ದ ಫೀಮೇಲ್ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟೋಫೈಟ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಸೀಡ್ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಅನ್ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಈವೆಂಟ್. ಎವಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಆಗಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಇದೊಂದು ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಈವೆಂಟ್. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಇದೇ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸೇ ಎವಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಗಿ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಜಿಮ್ನೋಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ ಫಾರ್ಮೇಷನ್ ಆಗೋದು. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದೀಸ್ ಟೆರಡೋಫೈಟ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಯೂಸ್ಡ್ ಫಾರ್ ಮೆಡಿಸಿನಲ್ ಪರ್ಪಸಸ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಬೈಂಡರ್ಸ್. They are also frequently grown as ornamentals. So these two are some economic important of the pteridophyte. Like we have studied in algae as well as in case of the bryophyte. Pteridophytes are also having some of the economic important, but we are not going to study them in detail. Just you concentrate on only these two. That means they can be used as medicinal purpose. Some pteridophytes can be used as medicinal purpose, as well as they can be as a soil binders. Soil binders andre, if we grow such type of plants, the soil erosion can be reduced. In case of hilly areas, commonly these pteridophytes are used to grow so that they can avoid the soil erosion. As well as some pteridophytes can also be grown as ornamentals. Ornamental plant ಆಗಿಯೂ ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನು ಗ್ರೋ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. And it is the picture of life cycle, especially in case of homosporous plant. ಏನು ಡಿಫರೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಹೋಮೋಸ್ಪೋರಸ್ ಮತ್ತು ಹೆಟ್ರೋಸ್ಪೋರಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಒಂದು ಲೈಫ್ ಸೈಕಲ್ ಅನ್ನು ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡಿದರೆ ಸಾಕು, ಎಂಟೈರ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಸೈಕಲ್ ಹೇಗೆ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. ವಾಟ್ ವಾಸ್ ದಿ ಡಾಮಿನೆಂಟ್ ಫೇಸ್ ಇನ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಟೆರಡೋಫೈಟ್? ಟೆರಡೋಫೈಟದಲ್ಲಿ ಡಾಮಿನೆಂಟ್ ಫೇಸ್ ಯಾವುದು ನಮ್ಮದು? ಹಾಗಾದರೆ ಸ್ಪೋರೋಫೈಟ್ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಸ್ಪೋರೋಫೈಟ್ ವಾಸ್ ದಿ ಡಾಮಿನೆಂಟ್ ಫೇಸ್. ಹಿಯರ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಇಕ್ವಿಸೆಟಮ್ 2n ಅಂತ ಬರೆದಿದೆ. 2n ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನರ್ಥ? ಡಿಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಡ್ ಅಂತ. ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಸ್ಪೋರೋಫೈಟ್. ಓಕೆ, ಇಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಡೂ ದಿ ವೆಜಿಟೇಟಿವ್ ರಿಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್. ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಅವರ್ ಬಿಸ್ನೆಸ್, ನಾವು ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಕಾನ್ಸಂಟ್ರೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಇಕ್ವಿಸೆಟಮ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸಸ್ ದ ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಬಿಲಸ್, ಓಕೆ, ವಿಚ್ ಈಸ್ ಕಾಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಸ್ಪೋರೋಫಿಲ್ಸ್. ವಿದಿನ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಬಿಲಸ್ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ದಿಸ್ ಸ್ಪೊರಾಂಜಿಯೋಫೋರ್ ವಿಚ್ ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ದಿ ಸ್ಪೊರಾಂಜಿಯಾ. ಹೌದಾ? ಸ್ಪೊರಾಂಜಿಯೋಫೋರ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? ಸ್ಟಾಕ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಸ್ಪೊರಾಂಜಿಯಾ. ಸ್ಪೊರಾಂಜಿಯಾ ಅಂದರೆ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ ಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್ ಬಾಡಿ. ಆ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ ಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್ ಬಾಡಿಗೆ ಇರುವಂಥ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟಾಕ್, ಅದೊಂದು ಸಪೋರ್ಟಿಂಗ್. ಸ್ಪೊರಾಂಜಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ ಮದರ್ ಸೆಲ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಓಕೆ, ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ ಮದರ್ ಸೆಲ್ ವಿಲ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಗೋ ಮಿಯೋಸಿಸ್ ಸೊ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಎ ಹ್ಯಾಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಡ್ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ಡ್. ದೋಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಡ್ ಸೆಲ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಸ್ಪೋರ್. ಅಂದರೆ ಈ ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಬಿಲಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ ಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಯಿತು. ಸ್ಪೋರೋಫೈಟ್ ಇಂದ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಏನು ಸಿಕ್ತು ಇವಾಗ? ಸ್ಪೋರ್ ಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್ ಆಯಿತು. ಹೌದಾ? ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ ಇಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಡ್. That spore when it germinates, it may, here in case of homosporous you cannot differentiate male and female. ಹೌದಾ? It will just develop into a prothallus. It's a gametophyte. ಹೌದಾ? That prothallus is going to produce antheridium and archegonium, male and female sex organs respectively. So antheridium is going to produce the anthrozoid, archegonium is going to produce the egg cell which is female gamete. When both antheridium and anthrozoid and egg cell fuses, that process we call fertilization. After fertilization, zygote is used to form. That zygote formation is taking place inside the female gametophyte. That's why that female gametophyte is retained on the sporophyte for variable periods. ಹೌದಾ? zygote formation ಆಗಿದ್ದು ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಏನಾಗಬೇಕು? ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋ. that embryo again developed into sporophyte. ಸೊ ನಿಮಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಹ್ಯಾಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಡ್ ಇದೆ, ಯಾವ ಕಂಡೀಷನಲ್ಲಿ ಡಿಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಡ್ ಇದೆ, ಇದು ತುಂಬ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಸ್ಪೋರೋಫೈಟಿಕ್ ಜನರೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಏನೇನು ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ ಅದು ಎಲ್ಲವೂ ಕೂಡ ಏನು? ಡಿಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಡ್ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್. ಗೆಮೆಟೋಫೈಟ್ ಅಂತ ಏನನ್ನು ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ, ಗೆಮೆಟೋಫೈಟಿಕ್ ಜನರೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ, ಅದೆಲ್ಲವೂ ಕೂಡ ಹ್ಯಾಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಡ್. ಹ್ಯಾಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಡ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಹಾಫ್ ನಂಬರ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಕ್ರೋಮೋಸೋಮ್. ಒಂದು ಸೆಲ್ಲಲ್ಲಿರುವಂಥ ಕ್ರೋಮೋಸೋಮಲ್ಲಿ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಹಾಫ್ ನಂಬರ್ ಮಾತ್ರ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ರಿಗಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ದ ಎಂಟೈರ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಸೈಕಲ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಟೆರಿಡೋಫೈಟ್. And the pteridophyte is classified into total 4 classes. Pteridophyte ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಟೋಟಲ್ 4 ಕ್ಲಾಸಸ್ ಇದೆ. and we are not going to study the characters of the classes individually. individual classes and characters na naವೇನು ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ. only thing we have to remember the name of the class as well as one example for it. okay, So the first class in case of division pteridophyta is Coelopsida. Example Coelotum. Okay, Coelopsida is the name of a class. Example Coelotum. ನೋಡಿ ನೇಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ತದೆ Coelopsida, Coelotum. And here the P is silent. P letter silent ಆಗ್ತದೆ. That's why it is pronounced as Coelopsida. Second one is Lycopsida. Second class is called as Lycopsida. Example Selaginella lycopodium. So Lycopsida, Lycopodium, easy to remember. Third class is called as Spinopsida. Okay, Spinopsida, and example plant is Equisetum. Equisetum is belongs to the class Spinopsida. Fourth one, it is Pteropsida. So here also the P is silent. Illu kuda P silent ide. It should be pronounced as Pteropsida. Example Dryopteris, Pteris and Adiantum. Okay, Dryopteris ಅನ್ನೋದು ಒಂದು ಪ್ಲಾಂಟು, Pteris ಅನ್ನೋದು ಕೂಡ ಒಂದು ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್. Again the P is silent. P silent ಇಲ್ಲಿ. And Adiantum. Okay. So this Adiantum is commonly called as walking fern. Adiantum ಗೆ walking fern ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. And this classification system, that means only name of the class with sometimes this question can be asked for 2 marks. Just mention the classes in case of pteridophytes. Pteridophytes ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರುವಂತ ಕ್ಲಾಸಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಥಿಯರಿ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ 2 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. Only thing you have to mention the name of the classes. If they ask write one example for each, then you have to write correct examples. Okay, so pteridophyte general characters is for 5 marks question. It's a 5 marks question. Only thing you have to list out the characters whatever we have studied. Understood? And the remaining divisions, that is gymnosperms as well as the angiosperms, we are going to study in next class. Thank you.